Howdy folks, and welcome back to the World of Tanks patch 8.9 test server. I'm back on the German tank destroyers after taking a break for a day and putting a War Thunder video up. And we're looking at the new German tank destroyers yet again. This is the new kid on the block at tier 8, the Rheinmetall-Borsig Waffentrager. And I've almost certainly mispronounced that, but Germans, you've got nobody to blame but yourselves for having such a difficult language. So, there's that. And I do try, and I love the German language. I think it's very, very practical and descriptive, but I have no clue how it should be pronounced. So yeah, here we are, tier 8. This thing is, I think it's a very, very good little machine, and it is a very little machine. Let's have a look at the Stug. It's the same size as the Stug. There's not a lot of difference in it. In fact, it may even be flatter and lower profile. And the Stug is a very, very sneaky little machine because it's so small and low profile. So I expect this thing to be similar. A very, very stealthy little tank destroyer. It looks like the engine's mounted in the front. You can see the exhaust here and an engine intake there. The driver seems to sit here. You can see his entry hatch there, and there's his viewport. And I don't know what these... I was trying to figure out what was actually in the back of this thing, and I suspect that these hatches here are where the ammunition rack is. So there you... I hesitate to use the word weak spots on this thing because it doesn't have any armour. The armour on this thing is 20 at the front, 10 at the side, 8 at the rear. I've seen more heavily armoured Ford Escorts. And that's the defining feature of these new German tank destroyers. They have very, very powerful, dangerous guns, but they are ridiculously easy to kill if they start getting shot at. And this thing's certainly no exception. It has two very powerful guns, but no armour whatsoever. This thing's defence is not being seen. And it does actually perform quite well if you use it like that, because it is a turreted tank destroyer. That turret will rotate 360 degrees. And when you get a machine like that, any other tank destroyer drivers who drive tank destroyers with turrets will undoubtedly agree. It's fantastic because you get the best possible use out of equipment like binocular telescope and camo net. Equipment like that doesn't activate until the vehicle remains stationary. And then the second you move the hull of the vehicle, they deactivate, and you have to wait for them to reactivate again when the vehicle once again stops. But with a machine like this, because it has a turret, you never have to move the hull of the vehicle unless you relocate into a different position. In another tank destroyer, like the Jagdtiger, for example, once the enemy targets move out of your gun arc, you have to move the entire vehicle, and that resets the whole cycle on the camo net and the binos. That never happens with the tank destroyer. With the turret, you just keep turning the turret, and keep shooting. It's only when you have to actually move the vehicle itself that you've got to go through the whole reactivation process on your equipment. So I really do feel that on a machine like this, you get all of your money's worth out of camo net and binoculars. While it doesn't have any armour at all, it does have a lot of hit points for such a small machine. I mean, this thing's tiny. It's way smaller than something like the ISU-152. And yet it has more health than the ISU-152. It has 1100 hit points. And it only weighs 21.29 tons, depending on the weapon that you have fitted. It weighs less than this with the 150mm gun than it does with the 128mm gun, because the 150 is a much shorter barrel. But it has a 207 horsepower engine, so it is actually quite manoeuvrable and quick. It'll do 35 kph, and it will do 35 kph. And it turns at 38 degrees per second. The turret rotates very, very slowly, however, 18 degrees per second, but it's got a very, very good view range, as you'd expect of a open-topped vehicle, 400 metres, and a good signal range of 700 metres. But it's a tank destroyer, and it's one of the new German tank destroyers, and they are all about the guns. This thing gets a choice of 2. Now, personal preference, the only gun I would ever consider using on this machine is the stock gun. The 128mm K44 L55, the one that you can see I have fitted there. It has a rate of fire of 5.5 rounds per minute, 246mm of penetration, 311 if you load APCR. but you shouldn't need it, not with 246mm of penetration on your bog standard credit purchased armour-piercing ammo. And it does 490 average damage. The accuracy is pretty good, 0.35, and the aiming time isn't bad either, 2.3 seconds. In my opinion, that's the only gun you should be using on this tank. However, there is another. And it looks like that. Shorter barreled, larger caliber, 150mm gun. Essentially what you've got here on this machine is a sort of budget price version of the gun selection on the E100. The E100 comes with a stock 128mm gun, or it can use a 150mm gun. But the 150mm gun is definitely a budget version of the underperforming 150mm gun on the E100. The rate of fire is 3 rounds per minute. That's just over a 17-second reload, even with the gun rammer fitted. The penetration is only 215mm, but the damage is 750. The accuracy is pretty damn bad, 0.4. And the aiming time is not terrible, but it's definitely not very good either, 2.7 seconds. It can at least carry 30 rounds of ammunition. Now, that 215mm of penetration is not terrible until you find yourself in a tier 10 game, and then it is pretty terrible. In a tier 8 game, I imagine it's going to be fine. I say I imagine because I've never managed to get this thing into a tier 8 game. The matchmaking's been brutal. You can still wreck targets at tier 9 with 215mm of penetration. At tier 10, however, it's really starting to look pretty bad. Of course, you could always buy yourself some skill and load up some high explosive anti-tank ammo in the same way that a lot of E100 drivers do if they're using that 150mm gun, because that gives you 334mm of penetration, and there is absolutely no skill required whatsoever when you're firing a gun that has that much penetration. So there's that. And that's pretty much why I would never use the 150mm gun on this, because of, well, the only thing that it has over the 128 is more damage. But in order to do that damage, you have to first hit the target with your 0.4 accuracy, and then you have to penetrate the target with your 215mm of penetration. Or you can throw some money at the game and use high explosive anti-tank ammo. With the 128mm gun, you just don't need to do that, because it's going to hit what you fire it at, because it's got 0.35 accuracy, and it's going to penetrate because it's got 246mm of penetration, and it isn't going to cost you a fortune to do it, because you get all that performance with your standard armour-piercing credit-bought ammunition. Having said all of that, however, I think this thing is going to be incredibly popular with that 150mm gun and premium ammunition in this new Team Battle Mode, which is coming in patch 8.9. The maximum tier of vehicles in Team Battles, which is ranked matchmaking, is tier 8. And I think this, along with machines like the ISU-152, are going to be very, very strong in that kind of game mode. And I would expect nearly everybody to be firing gold anyway in that kind of environment. I suspect it's going to be very, very competitive. You're going to see clans getting formed just for the purpose of playing in this team battle mode, and I think machines like this are going to be very, very popular, especially using the 150 with high explosive anti-tank ammo. In case you were curious, this is how much it's going to cost you to fire 6,000 credits. 6,000 credits per shot, or 15 gold. It's going to be hard to run a profit on this thing if you're firing gold, but some people have certain machines that they just love to load the gold ammo up on, and they pretty much drive other tanks purely and simply to fund their gold ammo firing lifestyle in their gold ammo firing tank of choice. And I think this may be one of them. Although, personally, I wouldn't touch the 150mm gun, because I think the 128 is just better in every respect. Well, it is better in every respect, other than alpha damage. As far as equipment fit and crew skills go, well, I've already covered the binocular telescope and the camo net. Obviously, you're also going to want a large caliber tank gun rammer. As far as crew skills go, don't pay too much attention to what I have here. This is a retrained Jagdtiger crew. Now the Jagdtiger doesn't have much of a camo rating, so I tend to go with a combination of camo and repairs mostly on my Jagdtiger. With this thing, I suspect it does have a very, very good camo rating, and so I would say, as I've pretty much said for just about every single one of these new German tank destroyers, you're going to want to stack as much camo as possible on these things. The second your commander reaches 100% on camo, swap that over for 6th Sense and then train camo on the commander again. Because these things have no armour, they just can't afford to be spotted. You get spotted in these things, you die. Simple as that. 1100 health at tier 8 is not a large amount. You're going to die if you get spotted. And that's why you want camo on the crew, you want camo net, you want binocular telescopes. Spot them and engage them and kill them long before they're able to spot you and return fire. So, let's have a couple of games. Okay, here we go. I've loaded the 150. We're here in the encounter mode on the mines map. And the matchmaking is pretty brutal, as it always is when you're driving a tier 8 on the test server. Obviously, I definitely don't want to be the first one spotted, because, well, you know what it's like. Everybody loves killing the low tiers first, because everybody loves getting a big number next to their name as much as anybody else. And this thing in a tier 10 game, I mean, this thing can't afford to get shot at in a tier 8 game. Tier 10s, T57 heavies, Waffentrager E100s up there, you don't want to get hit. You do not want to get hit at all in a tier 10 game when you're driving one of these things. So I'm going to park down here in these bushes and camp like a boss. We've got a couple of scouts fighting it out on the island. No idea why, it's encounter, there's nothing over there to fight over. And, ooh, actually this is going quite well. We haven't taken any casualties yet. We've nailed a batch out, an Object 704, and their Type 64. Of course, I've had nothing to shoot at yet. Now, I didn't really want to drive this thing with a 150mm gun. Missed. To be fair, I didn't have much of a target to shoot. Oh shit, I've been spotted. Get the hell out of there. Stay in the low ground. Don't be where you were when you were spotted. There's an Object 261. I don't want to get hit by artillery in this thing. It'll probably one-shot me. And yes, I didn't really want to use the 150mm gun on this thing, but I can't really review the thing without using, you know, all of the weapons on it. Because of that 215mm of penetration, you'll note I am not using gold ammo. I feel it's... You know that if you're using gold ammo with 334mm of penetration, you're going to be able to penetrate what you're shooting at. What's more useful for you guys watching the review is, well, what's the performance like without gold ammo? And that's why I don't use it. I'll tell you what the performance is like driving this thing in a tier 10 game without gold ammo. Really frustrating. This shot would have penetrated and killed the T110E3 if I'd been firing gold. And that's what you're going to have to get used to and live with if you're driving this thing with a 150mm gun and you're not firing heat. So forewarned is forearmed. So I've done no damage so far, but to be expected. You've got to play this thing really, really cautiously. 20 armor at the most, with these kind of guns shooting at you. You cannot get hit. Simple as that. What's frustrating, of course, is that even when you get a good shot, fully aimed, at another machine at this kind of level, it's a lottery. You know, you just roll the dice as to whether or not you're actually going to penetrate and damage them. We're winning 11-7, but I haven't really done anything. Okay, we know they've got a mouse and a T57 heavy in the base. Oh, 215B. Okay, finally I've made my mark on the game. 777 damage to that 215B. Blew his tracks off, which got him killed by the Foch 155. Oh, actually, alright, he finished in batch out 155.58. With .4 accuracy, There is no way I am risking this shot at that mouse. And to be fair, he's got 2 tier 10 tank destroyers shooting at him, so they didn't need my help. Now all they have left is the T-57 Heavy. And yeah, it's been a frustrating game. The crappy penetration. Bounced again. To be fair, I probably hit his gun mantlet at a very, very oblique angle there. But yeah, it's another bounce. Can I reload in time to take advantage of this guy having his turret turned around? Yes, I can. Hey! And to add insult to injury, it was an ammo rack explosion. Yeah, not that it needed it with 750 average damage. So yeah, I just don't like that 150mm gun. I'm sure it's great if you're using high explosive anti-tank ammo. I mean, of course it's going to be great with 334mm of penetration, but you need to know what it's like without the high explosive anti-tank ammo. Obviously, if you're using that stuff, you're going to penetrate what you shoot at, providing you hit them square on. Not the case with the credit ammo. If you get into a tier 10 game. In a tier 9 game, it's not bad. In a tier 8 game, I imagine it's going to be pretty devastating. I wouldn't know. I've never gotten this thing into a tier 8 game. Speaking of tier 9 games, here's a tier 9 game. As promised, tier 9 match in the Rheinmetall-Borsig Waffentrager. Again, this is with the 150mm gun. I was determined to at least get a decent match with the 150 just to show you what you can actually do in it. And this is the most generous matchmaking I've ever had driving this thing. Lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of tier 9s. 2 of the tier 8s and a very, very unfortunate tier 7 SU-152. As you'd expect, tank destroyers everywhere. Now, 400-metre view range, plus binocular telescopes. And yeah, we're going to need to get out of the way, because people are trying to get past us. So, you know, I move out of the way. I don't expect anybody else to, of course. And I'm getting a very, very bad feeling about this Jagdtiger 88. This is not a bad spot for this little machine because it's so small. You're actually exposing very, very little of yourself in order to fire over this this gap. The .4 accuracy, however, and remember that 215mm of penetration with armor-piercing shells is at 100 meters. So I'm shooting at targets, and that, by the way, was our Jagdtiger 88 almost getting me killed by artillery firing at him. Guy didn't have clue number 1. But he wasn't the biggest idiot on our team. So I've lost my commander, I've used my first aid kit to get him back up. Now the biggest idiot in our team was the tier 9 Waffentrager behind me. Wait until you see this. See that? Can you guess what's going to happen? How he didn't kill my gunner, I have no idea. So, great start. I'm down to 20% health, all thanks to my own team. So, yeah. Test server rules. But finally, I have something to shoot at. Wait for it. Below average damage roll, but 635 damage. I'll take it. A useful hit on a dangerous tank, T-54. Back up, because you've got to go through a 17-second reload with this 150mm gun. T-54 appears to have just given up, so I'll put some more into it, no problem. Again, back up. I haven't been spotted, however. Sixth Sense hasn't gone off. Bear in mind, Sixth Sense takes a couple of seconds to go off, and this guy's just going to sit here. Oh, he finished him. There's another. Oh, below average damage roll. He got away with it. Left him on very low health, however. And there's just targets. And these guys are all 450, 400 meters away. But the gun's still penetrating. Because shooting them in the flanks. Don't know if I hit that WZ. Shooting them in the flanks. With 215mm penetration, it was fine. It's absolutely fine. And the damage that you do is very, very satisfying indeed. And we're losing 6-8. Caminet and binos are up again. I know there's a T-30 coming down there. And even if they spot me, I am such a small target. And I'm not really exposing much of the tank at all. Looking for the best shot at this guy. That'll do. There we go. And I have been spotted. I fully expected to be spotted when I took that shot. So, get myself into cover. Wait. Plenty of time. 17-second reload. All the time in the world to move back out of line of sight and wait for you to drop off their radar. And I know, because I just proved it, that in this spot, they can't see me until I open fire. So a little bit of patience. Come on, Mr. Teeth. There he is. 400 health. With 0.4 accuracy and a 17-second reload, you have to make sure of your shots. Unfortunately, there's only 3 of us left. One of us is artillery. One of us is a tier 8 on 99 health. And I'm just not going to get that E75. And of course, the WZ-120 took the advantage to come around and just finish me off. So that is the only member of the enemy team who actually did some damage to me. Well, indirectly. Obviously the artillery splashed me as well. But, you know, the artillery wasn't even shooting at me, he was shooting at the idiot in the Jagdtiger 88 who was just making himself a massive target right next to me. And then, of course, I took that shot from the idiot in the Waffentrager who just derped one right into my back. So, not an entirely unexpected result, especially when you've got the lower tier vehicles in your team making the higher tier vehicles look like drooling idiots. Most damage done, most XP earned. Closely followed by our FCM50T driver, so the tier 8's making all the tier 9s on the team look like rank amateurs. But any game's going to be an uphill struggle when your top tier vehicles are muppets like this imbecile, who did no damage whatsoever to the enemy, and in fact the only thing that he contributed to that game was almost getting me killed. So, you know, there's that. So, yeah, I mean the 150mm gun, even without premium ammo, it does work. You just don't want to be getting into a tier 10 game with it. And to be fair, most of your games on the live server aren't going to be tier 10 games. You know, you're going to get tier 8, tier 9 mostly maximum games. So if you want to use that 150mm gun, because it's going to absolutely put a massive smile on your face when you're shooting against tier 6s and 7s as a top tier vehicle in a tier 8 match, you might want to think about loading up 5, 6, half a dozen rounds of high explosive anti-tank ammo and keeping it just for those games where you get into tier 10 matches. And you've got great shots, for example, at the flank of T110 E3s, and you really don't want it to bounce. So screw the 150mm gun. It's just no, well, it's not bad, but it's not as flexible as the 128. The 128mm has better stats in every category other than premium ammo penetration and alpha damage. This gun is more accurate, it fires faster, it loads faster, it has a better penetration rating without having to pay money for gold ammo. It's just a better gun. So, and again, I mean, I think this was, I've had some pretty brutal matchmaking in this thing. I think this was the worst. There's me and an E75, everybody else is tier 10. They have a T44 and tier 9 artillery, and everybody else is tier 10. So with 3 high tier artillery, especially one of them being a batch out autoloader, I have no interest whatsoever in being spotted. So I'm going to hang well back, let my team do the spotting for me, put this gun to work. We're here on Sand River, it's Encounter. Lots and lots and lots, and there's one of them. Now, damn. Going for his lower glacis, but the shot went slightly high and to the right. and it just bounced off his upper glacis. But yeah, it's a Foch 155. Bouncing shots is what they do. This Foch 155, desperately trying to avoid artillery fire, and I'm trying not to get in his way. Artie had a real hard-on for him. I wish Artie had actually killed him, because he turned out to be an absolute dickhead, as you're going to see. So far, my contribution to the battle, well, it's been pretty much zero. Took one shot at an enemy Foch, and it bounced. But they've got some big old tank destroyers up this road here. They got the old Waffentrager, tier 10. There's another Foch 155. There's a Death Star. Okay, I could shoot at the Waffentrager or kill the Death Star, so I'll go for the Death Star. Removes his gun from play. Now the gun depression on this thing is not bad, but it's not very good either, as you'd expect with such a low profile machine. Come up, I get the shots, but I fire just a fraction of a second too late. And watch this idiot. And I'm turning, I'm trying to turn, but he's not having any of it. We still have an Object 140 up there. He's going to do it again. Somebody please kill him. Object 140, yeah, I think he knows which side his bread's buttered. He's purely and simply trying to light us up for artillery here. That being the case, I don't want to get spotted. And there's an IS-7 trying to push the middle. So I'm leaving him for the other tank destroyers. Going down here to try and help our 215B against this IS-7, who will have artillery support. Now the lack of gun depression. This is dangerous. I did not expect that to penetrate. The damage roll was right on the money, 490 average damage, fine. The 215B is in serious trouble, and shooting at an IS-7 from the front, I cannot afford to take a hit, so I can't really spend the time that I need to aim at a weak spot. I'm just trying to put him under pressure and wait for our artillery to do the job. Now, to be fair, our artillery, I mean, they're shooting at him, and he's sensed blood in the water. You can see him thinking about that 215B left, and I'm just trying it, and it works. I'm trying to sucker him into coming after me so the 215B can get the kill shot. Luckily, it worked. He took the bait. Now, there it is. There's a Waffentrager E100 on the ridge. He's probably going to be shooting at our Leopard. And maybe I can take a shot at him. No. No, he wasn't lit up long enough. Now, I'm in a bit of a bind here. We're being capped, but I have no... There he is. Ooh, can I get a hit? Don't think so. Oh, he's pulled back. Ah, donked the shot. Adjusted fire the wrong way right at the last second. That's a shame. They're actually pretty heavily armoured, everywhere except for the turret. So I could certainly hurt this fella. Unfortunately, I wasn't spotted, but I'm pretty sure he's got a good idea I'm here. We're being capped, and I can't get down there without crossing the open ground. And risking getting hit not only by artillery, but also by this tier 10 TD. So I decided to change things up a little. I'm going to speed things up here. game could go either way. We're winning 9-7, but they've got some very, very nasty machines left alive, and all three of their artillery. If I can find and kill their artillery, I can change the course of the battle. RE75, who has spent the entire game behind our deployment zone, is only now moving forward. Our Object 140 has also done nothing the entire game. They're both still sitting all the way back here. E75 has finally moved forward. You know, he's finally made it to the position at which he started the game. Yeah, the Rheinmetall-Borsig Waffentrager, best scout in the game. That was a good damage roll, and we've lit him up, and that's the team were just waiting. They're just waiting for the opportunity to shoot at this guy. All right, now I wasn't spotted. Oh, I am now. Right, and oh, there's Artie. Now, Artie like to live as much as anybody else, so I know they're all adjusting their fire to hit me now, because I'm the most immediate threat to them. So what I need to do is get close enough to that T-92 for our own artillery to be able to put shots on him. Oh, hello. Oh, I've been spotted again. He takes a shot, he hits me, but he's only going to get one, and one is all I need to finish him off. I have to move, I have to keep moving. Artillery all that's alive, they know I'm the biggest threat. They're going to be zeroing in on me. I need to light these guys up. There's one. And I don't have the gun depression to hit him, but he's fired, so I can take my time now. Didn't quite kill him, but I know I'm going to beat his reload, and I need to get in close. And keep moving to avoid shots like that. From the M53. There he is. He's on the other side of the rock. And RE75, who's finally moved forward, nails him. All they have left is their batch out 155, who could be absolutely anywhere. Somebody's pinging the map. They seem to think he's heading for... Oh, of course, he's the only one left. He has to be in the cap circle because we're being capped. All right, fine, great. He's just announced his presence and told us where he is. So 3 kills. And damn, I had to work for them. E75 saying he wants Defender. You spent the first 10 minutes of this game sitting on your ass in the deployment zone. If you want Defender, well, you know, go for it. But if I get the shot, I'm going to take it. Note the speed of this thing. 35 kilometer speed limit, but going downhill you will reach 40, no problem. Even our T-92's getting in on the action, going tank destroyer mode on this guy. I'm not going to get a shot here. And our batch out 155 finishes him off. Good stuff. Well, I don't know about you lot, but my hands are shaking after playing that game. You know, this is what I love about World of Tanks. The fact that it continues to surprise me, even after all these years of playing. That you could... I mean, that was a tier 10 game. Despite the fact, I mean, who was there? Let's have a look. There was myself and an E75 on our team who weren't tier 10, and everybody else was. And the enemy team had a T44, and that was it. Everybody else was tier 10. So, yes, that was a tier 10 game. And sorted by XP. Yep, thought so. Yeah, got the most XP. But, you know, if you do well, remain effective and stay alive in a tier 8 machine in a tier 10 game, you're going to get the most XP because you're a little fish in a real big pond. And the game rewards you for that, for shooting at and damaging targets higher tier than you. Yeah, most kills, along with the M48, who sadly didn't survive, Didn't do the most damage, but I wouldn't expect to do the most damage. Came fourth, tier 8 tank in a tier 10 match. The fact that I did 2,759, frankly amazed at. So, yeah, this machine, whew, I do really, really, really like it with the 128mm gun. I think the 150mm gun is a joke. It exists for no reason other than to sell gold ammo. 215mm of penetration is absolutely fine for beating up tier 6s and 7s. You're going to be crying when you're trying to use that 150mm gun, that thing there, against tier 9s and 10s with 215 penetration, unless you buy yourself some skill and load gold ammo. And there's just no need for it, because the 128mm gun is fantastic. That's certainly my recommendation on this tank. Screw the 150. By all means unlock it, you're going to have to get to the tier 9, but I wouldn't use it. It's going to cost you a fortune trying to run this tank, because to stay effective in anything other than tier 6, 7, 8 games, well, I say tier 6, 7, 8 games, and when you're shooting at anything other than tier 6, 7s, some tier 8s, with the 150mm gun, you're going to need to be using gold ammo. Otherwise, you're just going to miss. Well, you're going to miss anyway, regardless of the ammunition you're firing with 0.4 accuracy. But when you do hit, with a gun that only fires 3 rounds per minute and does 750 average damage, you want every shot to count. And unless you're using gold ammo with that gun, you're going to get a lot of bounces. And you're even going to get bounces with the gold ammo, because it's high explosive anti-tank ammunition, and it doesn't get any normalization for armor angling. So it's just going to be, you're just asking to be frustrated using the 150mm gun. Don't do it. Use the 128, because it's a great gun. I mean, the evidence is right there. I just got the most XP in a tier 10 game than all of the tier 10s on my team using that gun. It's fantastic. There's no reason not to use it. So, yeah, the Rheinmetall-Borsig Waffentrager, the new tier 8 turreted German tank destroyer with the E100's gun selection. Damn, it's a good machine. It's got no armor whatsoever, of course, but is very much a glass cannon. This thing gets hit, it dies. You get spotted, it dies. You've got to use this thing sneakily. You've got to be smart, but you can get some amazing results with it. As always, folks, take care on that battlefield, and I'll catch you next time.